Hey beauty, welcome back to Behind the Lash with Tammy. If you've ever felt like life pushed you in a direction you didn't plan, today's episode is going to feel really close to home. In episode 1, I shared the real beginning of my beauty journey. In episode 2, we talked about the truth about lash retention that no one taught us. And today, I'm opening up about something I've avoided talking about publicly for a long time. Because it's personal, it's vulnerable, and honestly, it changed everything for me. This is the story of my health challenges, my perimenopause symptoms, the exhaustion I didn't understand, and the moment I realized my salon, the dream I worked so hard for, was no longer something my body could keep up with. It's raw, it's real, and if you're a woman in business, a mom, a caregiver, or someone who's been forced to pivot when it felt unfair, I hope this episode helps you feel less alone. Let's get into it. I promised I would share my salon story, and this is that episode. This is really difficult because it's taken me 5 years to get to this point where I'm ready to open up, to be vulnerable, and to finally share what happened to me over the last 5 years. I know I'm not alone. The pandemic happened to everyone. We were dealing with a global pandemic together at the same time. However, how we experienced it individually, of course, varies. So this is my story. I shared with you before that I was really excited about opening my salon. I was planning it for 5 years. I had looked at different commercial spaces, really doing my research in terms of what area I wanted to open. I had to be close to home because I was still juggling all the caregiver responsibilities and duties of being a mom. I know I wanted my salon to be close to my home. In my search, I discovered Pro Beauty Suites. And the landlord, his name is Ken, he introduced me to the Pro Beauty Suites concept. That is having a big commercial space. And within that commercial space, it houses smaller suites. It takes the pressure off of renting a big commercial space and having to deal with so many different expenses. You pay one rate, and that covers all the expenses that is required to run a suite. And it sounded really good. I loved the concept. And I know that this beauty suites business model is not new. This concept has been successful as a business concept in the States for some time. Ken developed this concept in Canada. He has a lot of experience in the industry, running the business with his father for over 30 years. When I met Ken, I knew that this was the right place for me to finally grow my business. It was small, but manageable. It was so meaningful to me because I had always wanted a room of one's own. In my university days, I had career aspirations of being a writer. I studied English writing, creative writing, and Virginia Woolf was one of my inspirations. She talks about a room of one's own. A room of one's own serves as a metaphor for a woman to have her own thing. Whatever that thing is, you can fill in the blank. For her, it was writing. For me, it was building my business and being a successful entrepreneur. I wanted to have my own commercial space and expand my business someday. I always wanted a room of my own, a room of one's own. This is why opening my own suite was so meaningful, because I felt like I finally achieved that dream. The pride, the relief, the excitement, it was all coming together. If you remember my story in my previous episode, I had signed the lease in July of 2019, and the salon was supposed to open in January of 2020. Of course, after some construction delays, we didn't open until the last week of January in 2020. I was so excited. My friends and my family, my husband, my mom, everybody was so supportive. It really was such an amazing time in my life. Words cannot describe how grateful it felt to have everything I worked so hard for come to fruition. I felt like I had finally arrived. I had no idea what was coming next. After we opened my salon, 6 weeks later, COVID shut the entire beauty industry down. It wasn't just the beauty industry, it shut our entire city down. Let me take you back to that time. That was March of 2020, 6 weeks after my salon opening. I remember the fear, the uncertainty, the shock. I really was naive and didn't understand what COVID was, what a pandemic was. I had never lived through a pandemic before. All we had was very little information coming from reliable government sources. Nobody really knew what it was except for people were getting flu-like symptoms. It was a very serious medical condition that could lead to even deaths. It was very scary at the time. And when we shut down our doors, everybody just said, okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks. I thought I was going to reopen in 2 weeks. I thought it was just the 2 weeks that we were going to shut down. Little did I know that one shutdown turned into 4 shutdowns or lockdowns, whatever you want to call it, over the next year or so for a total of 12 months. My salon had to endure opening and closing for 4 separate lockdowns. I calculated the months that the beauty industry was forced to close, and it was a total of 12 months. It was really difficult coping with all the emotions while trying to stay strong for family and clients. My clients were super understanding. They were just waiting for me to reopen. However, I realized the beauty industry is unpredictable. This whole experience taught me that I had to pivot. I couldn't just be a one-trick pony. I saw people on social media pivoting, starting businesses, starting side hustles, or developing different ways to expand their job or their careers. I slowly realized that I needed to make some changes because I was starting to drain on my reserves. We still needed to pay rent even though we were shut down. I was part of a special program approved for entrepreneurs where the government would help out with the rent, and they paid for 50% of the rent. The landlord agreed to pay 25%. And as the tenant, I was still required to pay 25% of the rent, even though I was closed. That was one of the hardest things to go through in my life. I realized that everything that I had ever worked for, I could possibly lose it all. I really shut down. It was heartbreaking to face what was next. Nobody knew when we were going to reopen. I was at the mercy of what was allowed for our industry, whether we would open or when we would reopen. A lot of the rules didn't really make sense. That's what I really was struggling with. The Greater Toronto area is so connected. It's really difficult to separate city by city. We travel to so many different cities and we're always crossing city lines. It was the silliest thing when my salon was on the north side of one street, and that is considered in the city of Mississauga. Then there was the store across the street. Here we call it Winners. In the States, it's called TJ Maxx. People were allowed to shop. Hundreds of people were lining up to shop and touching everything and going into the store to buy. However, I was not allowed to accept one client at a time, both of us wearing masks and accepting an appointment one at a time. It just didn't make sense to me. I think everybody was trying to figure things out while the doctors and the government were trying to figure out how to handle it as well. It really was such a very challenging time. I shut down because I am always so hard on myself. This is something that I'm constantly working on, giving myself more grace, being kind to myself. And I felt that out of all the times that I wanted to open my business, Why did I have to open at this time? Why did a global pandemic have to occur right now? My salon was only 6 weeks old. It was a baby. How could it survive? How can a baby survive and go up against a global pandemic? The writing was on the wall. I was watching my dream slip away before my eyes. The trauma of that really took a long time for me to talk about, which is why I'm talking about it now. What we bring to light, we release the power it holds over us. By shutting down and keeping quiet and not talking about it, it continues to hold power over you. That's why I'm sharing what happened to me, because I know someone out there may have gone through something similar. We were all going through it at the same time. It was so easy to feel alone because we were all at home hunkering down. We couldn't come out. We couldn't connect with people. That was the hardest part of all. Finally, after the fourth one, the vaccines were in place. Everything was in place. We were allowed to reopen. The last and final lockdown really did something to me. It shook me to my core. The stress of having to go through that had an effect on my health. I started to experience changes in my health that didn't make sense. I was tired all the time. I had brain fog. I had anxiety spikes. There were mood changes. I started having shooting neck pain, which I thought was from a car accident 20 years ago. So I was driving on the highway and some guy was coming on the on-ramp. He was going way too fast. Our cars were stopped in traffic on the highway, and because he was going way too fast onto the on-ramp, he hit the girl behind me and my car stopped their two cars. I had terrible whiplash. Even though my body healed, it never healed the same way. I've always managed neck, shoulder, and back pain because of the residual pain from the car accident. I was used to living in chronic pain. I get regular massages. I get treatment like physiotherapy. Anytime I have pain, I definitely go and get treatment to what we call a maintenance plan. I'm having this shooting neck pain all of a sudden. Maybe it was from the physical strain of doing the lash work. You have to be in this specific posture for a long time. You work long hours. Your work is all about precision. So there's eye strain, there's hand strain. Of course, I do exercises that my physiotherapist taught me to do after every client. This pain was a little bit different. I knew my body was telling me something. There were hormonal shifts I later learned were perimenopause. I felt like I was losing control of my own body. I felt like my own body was betraying me. There were days I felt like I was running on fumes. I couldn't remember why I walked up the stairs or came down the stairs. I had to physically walk back into the room to remember the reason why I needed to be there. There was that emotional guilt about showing up for my clients when my body was fighting me. All this time, I was struggling with perimenopause and I didn't even know it. Nobody warns you about this. Why aren't women prepared for this? Why doesn't anyone talk about it? I really hit me like a tidal wave, and it feels very lonely when no one tells you that this is what you're going through. This is not to disparage anybody or any medical doctor. We do better when we work collaboratively and we work together. Of course, there needs to be more education on women's health issues. I have been sounding the alarm with my family doctor for 2 years. 2 years ago was when all of these health challenges started to come up for me. I was dismissed. I was told that, no, it's not perimenopause. Unless you miss 2 periods, you're not in perimenopause. Now, all the research shows that you can be in perimenopause while still menstruating. My body was speaking and I had ignored it for way too long. For the longest time, I never prioritized my health. My parents were immigrant parents. They came to this country so that they could give their children, us, a better way of life. It was my responsibility to ensure I lived up to their expectations because they just wanted a better life for us, just like all parents, right? I don't think my parents were that different in their expectations of me. Because of that, I never prioritized my health. Being Asian, the oldest sibling, and being the big sister carries a lot of weight in the Asian culture. In my family, I am the oldest. I am the oldest daughter. I am the oldest sister. I'm older than my two brothers, the first one by 10 years and the second one by 14 years. I was always told I needed to set the example for my younger siblings to ensure that I showed them how to work hard and how to, be successful. I took that to heart and I always wanted to make my family proud. It's very important in the Asian culture to make your family proud. I really wanted to show them that I could make it. This salon represented my dream. It made me feel like I had all my dreams come true. In my previous story, I shared that I had doubled my client list, that I had booked multiple student trainings so I could expand my lash academy. I also received my first wholesale order. I was planning to expand the wholesale side of my business. All of these markers of success, or what I perceived as success, told me that I was finally, quote unquote, successful. Having all of these health challenges really forced me to stop, to put my health first. This is the specific moment where it all hit me. The fatigue crash. I was crying out of nowhere. I was so emotional. My body was physically shutting down. This was a moment that felt so true that I knew I had to listen to my body. I realized it wasn't sustainable. It was so heartbreaking to let go of a dream I fought so hard to build. All those years of planning and working towards it, I really had to let that go. The grief of losing an identity, Tammy the lash artist, Tammy the entrepreneur, Tammy the business owner with this beautiful commercial space. I had to really grieve that. I did go through the grieving process. The shame women carry around about slowing down and pivoting, nobody talks about that, especially since I have always been so ambitious. So it was really difficult to feel like I didn't fail when I closed down my salon. After so much time has passed and I've been working on myself, I've gone to therapy, I've really learned to see that resting is strength and it's not failure. Closing my salon wasn't quitting. I was choosing myself. Having to step back from services, I knew I wanted to create space for something new. I realized that my decade of education and all my previous experience in training, customer service, and helping other businesses be successful had huge value. I had developed my adhesives passion and vision in 2018 to help my students. I knew I couldn't rely forever on physical labor to create a sustainable income for me and my family. I began to get excited about what's to come. I felt that entering Amazon was a really good choice at the time. I'll be discussing how Amazon entered the picture in the next episode, so stay tuned for that one. Make sure you follow the show as I'm going to give you all the tea. Finally, discovering that entrepreneurship evolves, and so do we. I'm back now on my own website, and I'm rebuilding again, but this time on my own terms. Sometimes losing one dream makes room for the dream you were meant for. I really want entrepreneurs to know you're not weak for needing rest. Your health is part of your business. It's not separate from it. I always discarded my health. It was a second thought for me. I never prioritized it. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Your health is your wealth. Your identity can shift and it still can be powerful. Pivoting is not a failure. I rebuilt and you can too. Your path doesn't have to look perfect to be meaningful. Thank you for listening, beauty. This episode was a vulnerable one. But if sharing my story helps even one person feel seen, then it was worth it. If you're navigating your own season of change, know this: you're not behind, you're not failing, and you're not alone. There is life, purpose, and even success on the other side of a pivot. In the next episode, I'm taking you behind the scenes of what really happened when I moved my brand to Amazon. The good, the bad, and the lessons that changed how I run my business today. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss it. And if this episode resonated with you, it would mean the world if you left a quick rating or review. It helps other entrepreneurs and women who need these conversations discover the podcast. Thank you for being here with me. It means more than you know. Before we end, a gentle note. In this episode, I shared my personal experience with perimenopause and health challenges. This is my story, not medical advice. If you're struggling with your health, please speak to a qualified healthcare professional who can guide you based on your own needs.